I can't believe it. I'm in the same hotel as George Galloway after probably the biggest night of my life in seeing a political event like a by-election. I mean, George, you've seen these quite a few times. This is the third of your by-election victories. How does it rate with the others?
It's definitely up there, although the more often you do it, the more used to it you get. But it is the biggest swing in British electoral history, bar none. It's a swing of almost 45%. And there's never been a swing like it. The nearest would be the by-election that Simon Hughes beat Peter Tatchell in Bermondsey back in 83.
Yeah.
That was almost as big, but not as big. So it's the biggest swing ever, and that's something for the history books. Doubt it'll be matched. And it brings to fore the number of towns and cities that I've represented in Parliament, which is a record only Churchill can match. But when you think about it, he was a Conservative and then a Liberal, the two big parties of the state, whereas our victories have been, well, not that. So, yeah, I'm proud of it, but, I know that Rudyard Kipling's not your favourite author, but I treat triumph and disaster as imposters just the same.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was looking at the records, and Tony Benn had two more by-election victories, but not in different constituencies. So since the war, you're like the record holder now.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And of course, as someone to the left of Labour, well, that's off the charts in terms of records. I mean, the Communist Party held 2 parliamentary seats after the war, but not for long. But in terms of votes cast, we would definitely be ahead of them. I mean, I got 144,000 votes, first and second preference, when I stood for Mayor of London and so on. So if you think about it over this period since Blair kicked me out, we've pulled hundreds of thousands of votes, and in different parts of the country too.
I was watching your interviews after the result with all the mainstream media, and they were sort of trying to be as difficult as they could in their questions, and everything you said was true to yourself. You weren't trying to accommodate kind of what they might want to hear. You were just being exactly as you are, and they seem to be unable to do much with that. I mean, your journalism that you do, has that been a contribution in your ability to speak off the hoof? Because you do these monologues. I mean,
I've always been able to speak off the hook, so the journalism probably flows from that ability. But I've got to say to people watching that don't think they yet have that ability, that nobody has that ability at the beginning. It's like Jack Nicklaus's famous joke. When he got a hole in one, someone said that was really lucky. He said, it's funny, the more I practice, the luckier I get. The more you practice doing what we are doing now, interviewing and being interviewed, the more you practice public speaking, the better you'll get at it. Unless there's some, affliction that stops you from being so. But most people watching this can give proper speeches, can give proper interviews. I mean, the first speech I ever made, I read it off a piece of paper. I cringe now thinking about it. Oh. Now, I haven't looked at notes for almost 50 years, but my first speech to a Labour Party General Management Committees, we called them then, GMCs, I don't know what they are now, but I read it, handwritten, in pencil, on foolscap. I read it to the audience. And so the more you do, the better you'll be.
Right. I mean, and that's really the other thing about it that I find interesting about you is that you've had all these confrontations and people have tried to put you down all the time, but it seems almost like it makes you a stronger person. Would you say that's true? That the more times they've tried to put you down, the thicker your skin is, and the more you can respond to it?
I've not got a thick skin. I mean, if you cut me, I bleed like anyone else. But I have hardened my mind. I'm fond of a quote from Ho Chi Minh. Calamity has hardened me and turned my mind to steel. And I suppose that applies to me. I've had many calamities. You know, the roof's fallen in on me a lot of times. And it must make, well, it either kills you or it makes you stronger. So I would say that the confrontations and so on that you refer to have made me stronger, yeah.
I mean, another thing about you that I find interesting and inspiring in a way is you don't drink, and you have a belief in a God. Yeah. Is that right? I mean, is that something as well? I mean, because you've got up at whatever time it is. You know, many candidates would probably have been unable to get up.
No, I've got to go and thank people at the Central Mosque as they come out, because they very loyally supported me in the election. So I'll be standing outside the Central Mosque as they come out from the Juma prayers. I've never drunk in my whole life. I've never tasted alcohol. And my father before me, too. And considering I'm of Scottish-Irish extraction, that's quite an unusual thing. But my father was a militant opponent of alcohol. And I'm glad that he was, because he brought us up in the same vein. And I've seen a lot of my friends die through drinking too much. This was long before the drug age, of course. It's even worse, drugs. But I always say to my wife how lucky she is. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't gamble, and I don't go with other women. She kind of agrees that she's lucky, but not always.
I mean, that's so important. If you want to be a politician and you want to stand up for things, if you can't actually get up in the morning and you haven't got that ability to keep going because you've got a faith, then you will sink, won't you? I mean, there's a lot of stuff behind what you're doing.
I'm one of those that believes that Jesus was the first socialist. I always ask myself when I'm on the horns of any kind of dilemma, what would Jesus want me to do? What's the right thing to do? I ask my conscience. What's the right thing to do? And although I've sinned, of course, we're all sinners. But the good thing about being a Roman Catholic is you can be forgiven for your sins. But on the big issues, I have never gone against my conscience. And I don't think on the big issues that I've ever been wrong. If I wrote an autobiography, it would be we were right about everything.
Yeah.
And we were, all the big issues. Yeah. I'm just talking to someone there, Kevin Marr, distinguished correspondent on the Irish question, distinguished author and so on. And he was making the point that I was on the march in Dublin with Gerry Adams and Martin McGuinness in 1990. When it was virtually a proscribable offence, when Gerry Adams couldn't talk on the BBC, had to hire an actor to mouth his lines. It was a very hot potato, but I did it because I believed in it. I believe in Irish unity. I was brought up to, and even though I had only recently been elected for the first time, I couldn't turn down. How could I turn it down? It would be an act of cowardice, and I don't do cowardice.
Yeah. I know you're busy, so I just want to ask you the main thing. I mean, all that stuff I'm fascinated by, about how you're so strong and how you're able to go through all these by-elections and win these things, but also have lost some elections too.
Sure.
The left has been totally depressed since Jeremy Corbyn was ousted effectively by his own party of bureaucrats. And you've just won a massive victory, and this is the first time I've been able to kind of feel a bit of excitement for a number of years. We've got a general election coming up. Is it possible to get the left in some kind of shape to do something in this general election to actually stop Starmer winning a majority that the polls seem to be pointing to.
Yeah, but I think Labour's national opinion poll rating is a Potemkin village. Labour is not nearly as strong as it looks from the outside, and insofar as they're strong, it's only because of the flatness of the surrounding landscape. The Conservatives are so pitiful that, Mickey Mouse could be ahead of Rishi Sunak. And so I think if challenged credibly, as they're going to be now, after last night's result, then Labour might get some really big shocks. If you look at Angela Rayner's majority, for example, just a few miles from here, and I'm in touch more or less daily with the people that are going to be running against her, Angela Rayner's in very big trouble. The Labour deputy leader may very well be defenestrated. And that will happen in many seats up and down the country. A lot of the answer to your question lies with Jeremy Corbyn himself. I haven't spoken to him for many years, personally. I speak to people who speak to him, and he speaks to people who speak to me, but I haven't spoken to him in many years. So I don't know why he has procrastinated so long in making a final total break with Labour and leading something himself. If he was here now, I would say to him, you saw what happened last night. Set up, announce an alliance of the remaining socialists in the country. You lead it. I'll support it. You be the leader. And let's go. Time is running out. The general election might be 3 months from now. And I wish I knew why he had procrastinated, because if he had left Labour at the moment that he should have, at the peak of his powers, he'd have taken a couple of 100,000 people with him. And that's a force. Not many parties in Europe have a force like that. And he could have led it. And he must avoid being a wasting asset. He is a very considerable asset. And everyone loves him. But he should be careful that he doesn't waste the remaining opportunity that exists. If he won't, then we will. We'll run ourselves. We'll support independence where we don't run ourselves. And we'll do that. But we'll be weaker because of the absence of Jeremy Corbyn at the head of it.
Yeah. Well, just so people know, you're going to start your first day in your new job. Is that on Monday?
Monday, yeah.
And you're making a speech. Is that?
Well, I'll try to get in Prime Minister questions on Wednesday, and traditionally I will be called because I'm a recent by-election victor. I don't think Sunak will be looking forward to my question, but Keir Starmer will be looking forward to it even less.
Well, thank you so much for spending this time,
pleasure.
and I hope you have a good break,
Thanks.
rest before Monday. Sorry about Fulham winning last week.
Yeah, it was a great pity.